All right. Live again with Lit by the Fire. Thank you for joining me this evening. We are trying a little different today. Hopefully it is more stable. Hopefully, if not, we will just keep tweaking with it. But I'm glad that you made this evening, and I'm excited to share with you more from The Good Guys Win, Volume 1, which myself to write this last summer. They are actually sitting in the room with me right now, and it is very exciting here to join. Newton has 2 more stories in this anthology, which we will be reading together, and we will begin one of Wesley's stories this evening, and then we will finish the next week. So without further ado, let's get to it. We will be reading Newton's 4th story in this anthology. The Glistendeer. The street, his muscles aching. His backpack shuffled with the valuables inside. Behind him, he heard the police shouting from inside his safe house. They had just found his endangered animal skins. A moment ago, he had quickly crammed those valuable ones into the backpack, then escaped through the back exit. They knew it. Luckily, the police didn't have cars on this road yet. He heard a shout, "Stop, criminal! You have violated the law! Stop immediately!" Like he was going to listen to that. The police had a problem. They shouted stuff to criminals as if they were going to listen and obey. Shadow looked back. Drat! They had a police car now, and it was racing toward him. He rounded a corner. He'd never escape a car. He wasn't the Flash or Captain America. Shadow looked at the forest beside the road and made a split decision. While the police weren't watching, he ran and jumped behind a tree. He blocked the view right as the police car came speeding round the corner. He heard the car pass. Whew, that was a close one. Now he had to escape a mile or two into the woods by nightfall, or they would find him. So he ran. As he passed each tree, he felt more relief. He had escaped, but lost tons of expensive animal skins. He looked up at the sky. His stomach grumbled. It was midday, lunchtime. He had a wad of cash, but no one to buy food for the wild. Maybe a hasty animal up ahead. He was a skilled hunter and could live in the forest his entire life with just a small dagger. But that was a lot of work. He was buying all his meals with money he earned through legal animal skins. Luckily, he had all his gear in his pack, along with the skins and extra money. For a while, he reached a small cabin. He scoped it out. Logs were used to build the cabin, and bark on top of planks filled the roof. In the back, there was a pig pen and a small farm and a fenced out area so forest animals couldn't come in to scavenge. He took the fence and stole a few carrots. Deer antlers Shadow had ever seen placed above the doorway. Hunter like him. Maybe he could lay low here while the police searched for him. Shadow walked up onto the porch. A rocking chair sat. It looked like a boring way to spend an afternoon watching the forest after a day of hardship and struggling to barely survive. Shadow knocked on the door. It was made of bendable sticks in a complicated pattern. A man opened the door. Shadow stepped back. The man had big muscles. "Hello, what's the matter?" he said in a cheerful voice. It was surprising. Shadow thought all buff dudes were grumpy, like the one when he sold skins. Lucky break. "Hi, sir," Shadow said in a kind voice, not his usual. "May I please please stay the night? I don't have a place to sleep otherwise. Oh, come in! I don't get many guests. Shadow followed the man inside. He looked round, cozy. It had a couch and a fur rug in front of the fireplace. There were few objects you could buy from a store. Maybe the oil lantern, which looked like it was made of deer fur, was something the man had probably made himself. This place was simple, yet it would be a great place to spend the night. One thing was not simple. On the wall hung a pair of glistening horns, which Shadow took great interest in. They shined with the light of the lantern. Horns like these he could sell for 500 grand. He wouldn't have to hunt for 3 years. He sold those horns, live a secret life in Hawaii. The police would never find him. This guy was a real dummy. He had so many resources, yet he didn't use them. He could be rich as poor. My name's Beamer, the man said. Shadow introduced himself, but quickly changed the subject. These horns? Well, they came from a pretty creature called the Glistendeer. It shed them in a forest fire. I found them and put them up there. This creature, Shadow slyly said, must be beautiful. I want to see it too. Shadow knew if he killed the creature and the horns, he could get a killing. Beamer said, You can't. The creature is scared of hunters. We'll stay hidden. Shadow pulled a pair of binoculars from his backpack, careful to keep the illegal skins out of Beamer's sight. See, we can observe the creature from far off. Can you take me now? Beamer took binoculars and looked out the window. Oh, it was years ago when I last saw the Glistendeer, and it saw me. He looked at the horns on the wall. I miss it. We can track it. You can then experience the wonder again. But Shadow looked at the size of Beamer's muscles. Huge. If he tried to kill the creature and steal its horns, he would probably get into a fight. No smart person would want to mess with Beamer. However, Shadow had just outrun a police car. Beamer couldn't possibly that fast. Shadow was confident they would be worth it. After an hour, Beamer was all packed, and they were both ready. Beamer led the way. The ground was covered with weeds, some that they had to hack away with their tools to pass. Tall trees gave. The mosquitoes were swarming. How are we going to track this? Shadow asked. Do you have a tracking device, a sound app? How? None of that stuff. We're looking for footprints. Glistendeer isn't on any sound app. Out his camera. If the creature wasn't on sound apps, then it hadn't been found yet. He could sell evidence to the buyer and make even more money. Put that thing away, Beamer commanded. Village of the Glistendeer, get out. It will bring illegal hunters. Nobody wants them. After a few hours, they found footprints. Once they did, they set up camp. Beamer made a small fire. He gave Shadow some of his turkey jerky, which Shadow found deep on his backpack. Beamer asked, What's that? Sticking out of his pack was a corner of the animal skins. Shadow tucked the skins back inside. They were a gift from some... Beamer frowned. But they're endangered. Oh, tragic. But if I threw them away, then their deaths would mean nothing. I'm still trying to figure out what to do with them. Hang them on your wall, Beamer said, and respect their sacrifice. Shadow nodded and went back to bed, laid awake. That morning, they followed the tracks. It led them for a long time deeper and deeper into the forest, the tracks fresher. By mid-morning, strange sound. Beam whispered, "It's the Glistendeer." They got behind a small tree. They looked through the brush and saw the Glistendeer at the river below. It was drinking water. Shadow pulled out his binocular calmly from the river, graze a patch of grass. Shadow was stunned. The creature had even better horns than the ones on Beamer's wall. The coat was a perfect mix of green and sky blue. Shadow imagined the black market auction that could raise the price on a coat like this. After they both had long turns looking at the creature, Beamer grew worried it would notice them. I think it's time to go home." "Get closer," Shadow whispered back, moving from one small tree to another, knowing that the closer he got to the creature, the more likely he could shoot it. Beamer urgently whispered, "What are you doing? It will see." Shadow quietly pulled a handgun from out of his pocket and held it where Beamer couldn't see it. But before he could shoot, a group of three jumped out at the creature, at its legs. Beamer ran past Shadow, hunting knife in his hand, and scared the wolf away. He chased it into the woods as Shadow remained hidden in surprise. Then the creature's horns to fling the remaining wolves 20 feet in the air. The wolves hit the ground and ran off. Once the wolves were gone, Beamer and Shadow came out of hiding. The creature stumbled in pain. Its leg looked ragged and red, maybe even broken. Poor Thed, "I think we will have to put it in misery." "No," Beamer said sternly. "We will save it." He pulled out a first aid kit to bandage the wound. "Beamer, the wolves will just kill it once we're gone. We either let it suffer or let it rest." "We have a chance, Shadow. We can't let it suffer here, much less kill it." Shadow, however, decided it was time to take the loot and run for his life. He got out his knife and started to cut off a horn. Looked up, shocked. Beamer ran at him. Shadow dodged and finished cutting off the horn, but Beamer jumped on his back, getting a grapple. Shadow felt a jab in his stomach and a twist of his leg. Threw him across the ground and he tree. Shadow still had the horn. He got up to run for it. Beamer yelled, "Stop! No one can know about this creature!" But when Shadow didn't listen, Beamer charged at him. Shadow stuck up the horn as Beamer ran him. They collided. Shadow fell back, and then things went black. Shadow woke up. He saw the horn lying by his side in blood. He got and saw Beamer lying in a puddle of blood. He checked for a pulse. Beamer was dead. Shame and guilt filled Shadow. He hid the body behind a bush so he would know. Then he remembered the creature and the profit he needed to earn. He looked. It would get him a lot, but the other horn and the glistening fur coat could get him everything he ever dreamed. The creature was gone. He saw a trail of blood and followed it. It led him to a cave. Inside, he heard pain. It was the Glistendeer. Forward in the dark until he needed to get out his flashlight. He switched it on. There was the creature with the front leg, but behind the creature were 4 baby Glistendeer. Shadow hesitated. Was he about to kill a mother and her baby creatures? he care about what happened to animals? He pulled out his handgun. Then he heard a howl. The wolves. They were at the mouth of the cave. The creature was his, not theirs. His hunting knife with the other hand. The wolves ran in. He shot his gun. It hit a wolf's head, killing it. There were two more wolves. One jumped on him and bit his arm. Fierce Shadow stabbed it in its side and the throat. The wolf fell down. Shadow rolled to his feet, exhausted. Where was the third wolf? The Glistendeer was making noises. It sounded panicked. Shadow counted the babies. 3. One. He ran out of the cave. He heard the baby cry just a little further. He ran, holding his bleeding arm. Soon he saw the wolf dragging the baby in its mouth. It saw Shadow and jumped in its den. Shadow ran after it. Shadow slid down a thin tunnel. He put up a fist. The baby Glistendeer fell free. The wolf wounded arm and tore at it. Shadow screamed in pain. He kicked and beat the wolf with his flashlight, but it wouldn't relent. He threw his back animal skins. The wolf grabbed one and ran off. Shadow grabbed the baby Glistendeer and cradled it in his good arm. He crawled out of the den and back to the cave. He saw Glistendeer's wounded leg. It was ripped up like his arm, an identical. He laid the baby beside the mother. Then Shadow grabbed a first aid kit. He pulled out bandages and wrapped the creature's leg. Once he wrapped his arm. The sting of the pain wouldn't stop. He laid down beside the Glistendeer, and that is the end. A much more mature story than the last that we read, and a sign of his progress through the summer. We turn now to his last story of the summer, The Blacksmith's Medallion, which is a bittersweet story. So, read that. The Blacksmith's Medallion. Bang, bang, bang. Clint hit the hammer onto the scythe. He needed the hardest metal and the sharpest edge. He put the metal over the lava pit to get it scorching. Bang, bang, bang. Clint let the metal cool, then tried to bend the blade of the scythe. Nothing broke. He swung it through the air, as light as a feather. He put the scythe back on the rack, finished. He sat back in his chair, waiting for the next cut. The local farmers brought him tools to patch up, but his work was good enough that people were coming by less and less often. A half hour went by, nothing. He was better than this. Being a blacksmith for farmers was boring. He looked out the window. Not much happening on the street. Clint decided it would be a good time to make a toy for his son Timmy's 6th birthday. He pulled out a bar of metal. He put it in a fireproof dish and melted it over the lava. Once it was, he shaped it into a spinning top, careful to make it perfect. After a while, he spun it. Clint's eyes sparked. It spin long and satisfyingly, big enough that Timmy wouldn't lose it to small nooks in the house, but small enough in his pocket. No other farmers came with new orders. Clint waited until sundown to close the shop. When he went outside, he heard a commotion. There were many people gathered at the town. Clint locked up and went to join them. the king came, leading the army back from war at the outpost. Crowds were cheering, families rejoiced, each warrior on the shiny metal sword. Clint watched as tears fell when families reunited. Everybody made a victory possible, won the day. The king raised a gold medallion. Army Blacksmith was the one who created all the swords, shields, and armor for each soldier. Let's all give our thanks to Thaddeus, our Army Blacksmith. The crowd burst into cheers. The king put the medallion round Thaddeus's neck. G took root in Clint's heart. He never gotten a party, much less a ribbon or reward for farmers. This enriched Clint. He needed that job. Clint's living room, Timmy cheerfully spun his top on the floor. His wife and his mother sat together on the couch across from him. Clint sighed. I want to be an army blacksmith. His wife Mary said, that's a bad choice. His mother joined the conversation. You'll get overworked. There's too much to do in one day. That's true. You'll also get hurt. Army blacksmiths work with lava too much. Okay, Clint responded. Timmy looked up. Daddy, will you have time to play with me? Clint smiled. Don't worry, kiddo. I'll be there for you. He giggled and returned his new top. When Clint went to bed, he told himself, I can still get a job. They just don't need to know about it. Clint got out of bed. He had gotten a good night's sleep. He walked over to his smithy. He knew he would have to petition the king to become a blacksmith, and he would have to impress the king. He could audition, make a sword. So he got iron and started melting it. Once it was done, he shaped it into a sword stick, his hammer to pound the metal. In an hour, he had a fresh sword that he knew the king would love. He headed out the door with the sword in hand. He walked down the street, breathed the morning air. He felt good, accomplished. Maybe getting the job would be as simple as this. The castle was an hour's journey up the peasant road. Once he arrived, he joined the petitioners and soon took his turn. He went into the mighty. Clint took a bow. Your Majesty, I would like to become an army blacksmith. I have some of my work here for you, made by my hands. He handed the king the sword. The king sparkled. Is this the type of sword I like to see for my soldiers? How long did it take you to make this? Clint thought about this. He knew it had taken him about an hour, but the king wouldn't like that answer. He could say 30 minutes instead, but was he really going to lie to the king? 30 minutes, Your Highness. Fix a sword like this in 15. Come back when you are faster. Clint walked back to his smithy, discouraged. Could he really get this job? He had 2 swords and a fourth of the time. He wasn't at all good enough, even when he had lied to the king. But I can do this, Clint thought. I will practice. I will try harder. Sweat streamed down Clint's face. He lifted a hammer and pounded again. He'd worked all day to achieve 50-minute sword, the 15-minute sword. He needed to get there no matter what was in his way. He continued. He had improved his skill, reducing his time by using tricks like putting the lava-proof dish closer to the lava so it would melt quicker, and putting in twice metal so he could make 2 swords at once. And made in about 30 minutes. Clint tilted his head back. He had cut his working time in half, which was only disappointing because he hadn't improved at all beyond what he had said he could already do. He saw the sun sinking into the horizon. He walked home. His trip to the castle, he had been working late. Once he got back to his house, he was exhausted. He walked past Timmy on the ground. "Can you play with me?" "Sorry, Timmy. I have to go to bed. How about tomorrow?" "But Daddy, you said that yesterday." Clint tousled Timmy's hair, but continued to bed. The next day, Clint had a plan. If he could spy on the other blacks, so he went over to the castle armory where Thaddeus worked and crawled onto the roof to spy. When Thaddeus arrived, Clint saw the size. The other week at the king's announcement, he had Thaddeus from a far distance. It didn't look like his muscles were this big. Clint took his mind off of it and watched Thaddeus work. It seemed like Thaddeus made swords the way anyone else would, only faster because of his bulky muscles. It soon observed other things blacksmith's work. Thaddeus used better tools and premium metal. Worked long into the night. He had no family waiting for him at home. Clint made a decision the next day to rush and finish the best sword he could make in 15 minutes using Thaddeus's techniques. He got to work. He grabbed the metal, tossed it above the lava, got assembly set up, tens ready. He poured it on the sword stick, hit it as fast as he could. When the 15 minutes were up, he stopped and let it cool. Clint looked at the blade. It looked sharp enough. He tested it against the wood block. Didn't break. He tried it again against the stone wall. The blade shattered into 1,000 pieces. Too weak, too thin. Clint was angry, not at the sword, his life. He threw himself on the floor. After 5 minutes, he got himself together. Clint knew what he had to do. I will steal what I... After work, instead of going home, Clint went back to the castle armory. Thaddeus was at the forge. Clint grabbed bars of premium metal and a special hammer. He came off into the night and hid them in his smithy. Then he left for him. He knew if he made the sword right now, his family would come to get him. He went home and straight to bed. He woke up late the next morning. Well, normal time, but late for him. Getting up at 4 o'clock, but today, 7 dressed. When he came out, Timmy was there. Dad, please play with me. Clint didn't respond. He ran out the door. Arrived at the smithy, got straight to work. He melted the premium metal bar. It took a little longer. It was harder. When the metal was ready, he poured it out. When he used the tools to pound, it was the hardest metal he had ever pounded, his hammer he had ever used. When he was done, 25 minutes had passed. He was all exhausted, and the sun was barely past breakfast time. He tried again with another sword. 25 minutes wasn't working. He wiped the sweat off his brow. He had to rush it. He put the dish directly in the lava. He did fewer pounds. His muscles ached and his eyes. When the sword was finished, taken 20 minutes. Time about it. He lied to the king last time. He could do it again and get the job. So he took the sword and walked the hour journey up the road to the castle. He was almost stumbling when it came his turn to enter the throne room. Clint knelt to steady himself. "King, I have come back to you with the sword." The king took it and observed it. This is good. How long did it? 15 minutes. Splendid. You got the job. Clint got up. He felt, even as he staggered a pillar to catch his breath. Over the past month, he had tried so hard to get the job, and now he had done it. He left the throne room at noon. The sun beat down on himself down the dirt road, thinking of home, his bed. He could sleep off this fatigue and be ready to report first thing tomorrow. Halfway home, stumbled and fell on his hands. He shook his head. His vision was dark, but he got up and continued walking. He felt his muscles trembling. He stumbled. He felt like his body was a piece of metal that wouldn't bend no matter how hard he hammered. He told himself, "I can do it. I'll make it home." He started walking again, but it was only in his dream, for he had fallen on the road unconscious. Clint woke, looked around. He was in his bed, in his room. His family must have found him. He looked up. Mary was at the door. "We found you unconscious on the castle road." "Is it morning?" "That was 3 days ago," she said, trembling. He started in fear, but his body wouldn't rise, wouldn't let him out of the bed. Mary added, "Yesterday, the king's messenger came look at you. He went by your smithy, Thaddeus's missing hammer. Do you know about that?" Clint groaned. He'd been caught. What could he say? If he lied, things might get even worse for him. From the castle armory. Mary looked furious. "No, you stole it. You lied to us." He did with his eyes, but she wouldn't lie anymore. "Yes," he said. She nodded and silently left the room. He hurt all and couldn't get up to go after her. A minute later, he came by the door and looked at him. Clint smiled a sorry smile. He listened for the question he knew was coming. He wanted to hear again, to remind him that he was home, that everything would be okay. His son said nothing, turned and left. Clint felt desperate. "Timmy! Timmy!" Timmy didn't come back. Clint rolled in the bed, feverish, but he couldn't of Timmy giving up. He'd let Timmy down. Had he only listened to his family's advice in the first place, had he only once stopped to play, he couldn't move. It was late. 3 weeks passed before Clint had recovered enough to use crutches and returned to work. Harry and Timmy weren't talking. Going back to work at the smithy was his chance to show again his usefulness to his family. Broken farming equipment had stacked up in his absence. Repairs, what had taken an hour in months past, now took half a day, as he was too weak to wield the hammer well. A week passed when Clint got an idea. Maybe he could impress Timmy with a toy wheelbarrow and a medallion, a reward for surviving these tough times with Dad. Clint got to work slowly, for he could not master. He melted the metal for the toy wheelbarrow. He burned it himself when he burned himself and he took it out. It took many tries to shape the pieces, and Clint had to breaks often and reheat the metal. Then he started working on the medallion using a bar of gold He melted the gold, poured it onto the plate, pressed it into a circular shape with a few special details and a hole he would tie around Timmy's neck. He was tired often. While he waited for the medallion to cool, he fell asleep at the workbench. When he woke, he saw a glass of ice water on his table that Mary had brought by. It went down quickly. He was finished. He looked at the wheelbarrow and medallion. Horrible. The wheelbarrow did not barrow. The wheels were bent, and the barrow wasn't flat. It looked like a weird acorn. It could barely roll on the floor. The medallion was imperfect too. Gold he'd carved inside the heart. The gifts weren't good enough, yet they were all Clint could do or knew how. That afternoon, Clint came home early. He hid the gifts behind his back and walked to Timmy in the living room. Timmy turned away. Clint knelt beside his son and asked, "Will you play with me?" Timmy turned. A smile crept on his face when Clint pulled the toy wheelbarrow from behind his back. Then he fastened the gold medallion around Timmy's neck and said, "To my boy, who was always there for me." Timmy hugged him. "I love you, Daddy." This is the end of Newton's writings for this anthology. A very touching last story. Well, I'm going to take a sip of tea. You are cozied up by your fire, or the weather permits, and have the right beverage to enjoy these stories with. Well, we have actually only read half of this anthology, and tonight we will read one more story, the first one written by Wesley, called The Rogue Invention. You will see right as we begin, there are many differences between the way Wesley and Newton write their stories, and they are each fun in their own ways. And it is to both of their credit that they are both together, and it is wonderful that they did this work. So we time jump back to the beginning of the summer and now begin The Rogue Invention by Wesley. In the small village of Low Valley, Billy high above the cliff of prosperity. The cliff was tall enough that Billy could see the watching crowd like an eagle. All of the people looked like ants down 5 stories to the ground, out to to jump off the cliff with one of his inventor wingsuits. The design was amazing. It had super light titanium wings and a strong rocket like bullets. "Don't do it! That's suicide!" yelled Billy's friends, Jack and Gary, trying to talk sense into him. "You never listened to us, but now this is the worst idea you have had this month." "Can't stop me now," Billy said as he lit the rocket on his wingsuit. He knew about what to do in the book he had borrowed from the library. He jumped off the cliff. Billy streaked across the sky, going so fast that people looked like smudges on the ground. Flying like a jet over town, Billy flew toward a skateboard in the distance, which he had placed on an uncommonly used road that served as a runway. The crowd almost seemed impressed as he flew across the sky, navigating toward the skateboard, using ropes on the wings to adjust his flight. He was about to make the final adjustment that would land him safely. A car turned out of the makeshift runway and started moving toward the landing zone. The crowd watched in horror as Billy released a rocket that was strapped to his belly and yanked up as hard as he could on the wings, managing to float up and over the car. All of a sudden, disaster struck. Billy's too far after the stunt maneuver, losing his lift. Billy started to fall, so he tried to pull into a dive. Billy struggled to revert his flight, but his stall caused him to tilt sideways, pulled a barrel roll, and tilted his head lower. Billy recovered some of his altitude, although the sudden movements caused him to lose hold of his right adjuster. Without the ropes, Billy pitched left, the run flipping around. Billy watched the ground speed up to him. His flight ended in a pile of leaves. Whew. At least I'm still thinking, Billy thought, all his previous bumps and bruises stinging from the crash. The typical crowd of judgment laughed as he crashed. The wingsuit landing was his legs squirmed up in the air. Billy lay there for a while until his friends came and hoisted him up. "Quite preposterous," Billy muttered. "Come on, Billy, we're taking you to the doctor. And next time, you need to listen to us. You got yourself killed." "I don't need to go to the doctor," Billy said. "I didn't hit anything hard. Besides, I wasn't going faster than 10 miles per hour. Besides, stop blabbing. The doctor is going to fix your hearing," Gary said, evidently annoyed by Billy's ability to ignore people. At the doctor's office, the doctor seemed to be expecting them. "Billy, you need to know. Why can't you be a helper like your mom wants you to be?" Billy groaned. "Helping with dirt? No way at all." Jack said, "Remember the incident with the rocket? Or the robot tiger that you made to ride to school? Or the Iron Man boosters? You always managed to get yourself hurt. Now you almost got hit by a car." "Actually, he almost hit the car," Gary added, showing the scene with his hands. Jack seemed to be struggling with his interest in keeping his friend alive. "All of those times we have been there to try to tell you how dangerous. Can't you just listen to a bit of reality?" "Injuries," the doctor said, impressed. Billy was furious. "Just you wait. Someday I will be the greatest and most daring inventor of all time." "If you even make it to some time," Gary joked. It made Billy storm out of the office. "Oh, take it easy, Gary," Jack said. After his visit with the doctor, Billy walked home. "This will work out eventually," Billy said, sad at the loss. "Next time." But he didn't really believe it. Looking up the side of the valley, Billy saw the nearby lake and thanked the deep forest for keeping the edge of the lake from flooding over the low valley village. Soon, a robot named Bessie appeared, gathering wood for Billy's mom. He built Bessie to help his mom easily make campfires. Billy watched the robot. It was his only success. He remembered the pride he felt in the robot with his mom for Mother's Day. That robot kept him going. After every fail and every crash that he survived, Bessie reminded him why he was still inventing. Rolled past him on her treads. The robot waved as it rolled along the path to the chopping zone. Billy responded with a wave as he walked along. Hi, Bessie. Good day. Go to, Bessie did happily. When Billy returned home, he looked at the Raptor wingsuit. The damage was disappointing. He got his fail tracker clipboard and drew another tally. Billy decided that he'd check the news to see how much attention. Billy turned on the TV and slouched on the couch, looking for his name on any of the 29 local channels. Billy picked up a remote and flipped through each of the channels, only talked about the weather, and a few talked about sports, but Billy couldn't find his name anywhere. Especially when he flipped on the 9th channel, the invention. It never buzzed with his name. Billy couldn't find his name anywhere. Oh, they aren't talking about my failure on the cliff of prosperity, Billy said, trying to sound optimistic. Before Billy turned off the TV, the 29th said, indicating that there was a disaster. The sound of fake sirens went off from the television, and Billy turned around. Tornado storm approaching. The news blared an even more terrible message. This is an urgent announcement. The local wood chopping robot made by the mad inventor Billy is no longer known as his success. The robot is threatening the village of Lee by destroying the forest. Normally, the destruction is an awful but non-lethal problem, but because of the geography of Low Valley, the forest roots keep the lake from flooding Low Valley. This robot threatening our very lives. Channel 29 News now demotes Billy's robot to the status failure. Billy smoldered in his rage. Finally made it onto TV, and it was all about his failure. Mad at Bessie, too. Why would his only masterpiece turn against him? What made Bessie decide to ruin his inventing? He fumed and looked at the door to outside. Billy's mom walked into the room from the hallway and leaned against the door. Billy, how to leave? Billy shouted at his mom for trying to stop him. Mom, I know you want me to be safe, but it is my responsibility to fix this. My life's work is anchored on that, so now I have to act. If I don't, all the team will stop. Billy, cops can arrest Bessie, and then you can get a job on a carrot farm. The carrot farming. Besides, no one will look down on you on a carrot farm. You won't have to be the town weirdo. You won't be a failure to anyone. Billy's mom smiled at the idea of having a normally that brought home carrots for dinner. Billy steamed. 2 things, Mom. 1, I hate carrots. And 2, I don't care what others think. I don't care what you think. I only care what I think. And if I give up on inventing, I will be a failure for the rest of my childhood. Do you want me to look back on my childhood and say, wow, I lived a mundane life growing my least favorite food I ever eaten because I decided to give up on my hopes and dreams because I lacked the dedication and perseverance I was gifted with? Billy left the house and slammed. He's a little too gifted. After leaving his house, Billy decided to try and shoot Bessie with his bow and arrows. He thought he might get Bessie in one of the places where the armor was not seamless. He ran around the back of his house and picked up his bow and quiver. He looked at the arrows he'd fired earlier at the testing target. None of them accurate. All of them stuck feather up. Billy shot one of his arrows at the target and managed to make a lucky bullseye. "I think this one," Billy said. The success made him run a little faster. Billy thought about look for Bessie. The forest was huge. Billy thought desperately and then looked up. "That's it," Billy exclaimed, seeing the Forest Watch suspension bridge. Feeling lucky, Billy ran for the ladder that could take you to the top of the suspension bridge. Billy jumped over a rock and flew up. Billy saw what the news was talking about. Billy saw hundreds of fallen trees, so much that the forest looked just the same as when the quarry was built in the neighboring town. Billy, holding his bow tightly in his left hand, through the mulch for Bessie. After a while of searching, Billy saw a slight shimmer farther in the forest. Bessie. Billy fired an arrow. Shimmer. It seemed like Bessie was heading for Billy's favorite tree in all the forest, the tallest tree Billy had. "First to strike wins," Billy said, mind racing fast. After shooting the arrow, Billy counted his remaining shots. He had only 2 more arrows, and the first one had already missed. Billy took hold of his bow and shot another arrow. The arrow went so wide it failed to even make Bessie notice, causing Billy to lose hope. "Third time does the charm," Billy shouted as he fired his last arrow into the forest. Yet the last arrow still missed. "The darn I ate all my luck," Billy scoffed, walked down his favorite tree. Thinking about the next plan of action, Billy ran across the bridge to a place where a plank had rotted away. He ran as fast as he could, and below the missing plank overlooked a tree, tall enough that if you climbed through the hole, you would be able to climb down the tree to a place near his family shed. He knew about this shortcut because before the bridge was made public, Billy's friends had used the tree to the bridge. Billy slid down the tree. Running to his shed, Billy found his custom trap. Billy picked up the heavy sack with the trap components and heaved it over his shoulder. Even though the trap was heavy, he dashed to the site of Bessie's destruction. Billy hurried to the place where he would set a trap. Then he set up 2 nets on either side of a lure, a dead sapling tree. If Bessie tried to uproot the sapling, the trap would spring and the nets would close over the sapling and catch like a Venus flytrap. Billy covered the two sides of the trap delicately, and the process took a while, so Billy hoped it would pay off. When Billy saw a shimmer, he dived over a log to avoid being seen. Bessie approached the trap delicately, looking left and right to see why the sapling lure looked so dry. Bessie reached for it, but hesitated. She looked down, seeing that the ground was different. She rolled around the lure in 5-foot circles. Then, quick as a tie, she lunged for the dry sapling, dodging the trap by an inch. Bessie screeched, seeing a little bit of Billy's hair that stuck out from behind his coat. "I'm right here, you urchin." "Foil in!" Blinded by rage, Billy jumped out from behind the log and made a mad dash to tackle the robot. Billy hated she had been his only success. That she had become a failure was all. Bessie shot away on her treads with Billy in pursuit, on one desire, to catch Bessie before she could more destruction. Billy ran hard In his pocket, a small radio transmitter banged on the side of his leg. It was a gift from Jack and Gary, their way of reminding him to talk to his friends eventually. As Billy saw something shocking, a trail of bombs wired together that rose up to the top of the forest mountain. Did Bessie do all this? It caused his brain to spin out. Billy thought about a spy movie he had seen once. To stop a bomb, you had to cut a wire. There were usually two wires, one that made it go boom, and the other that diffused it. Only had one wire, the boom wire, so Billy left it alone. Billy kept running up to the top of the forest where the roots held the lake or the natural dam his town depended on. He continued, rounded a corner of the forest, and stopped. Billy rounded the corner, crunching gravel under his feet. He walked into a clearing. When Billy reached the center, 4 massive trees crashed down, trapping Billy in a gravel arena. Bessie rolled up to Billy, the metal eye gloating over hot who. Billy kicked back at Bessie, but to his surprise, Bessie didn't fight. Instead, the rogue robot held up a red button, reminding Billy of the experience he had seen in the forest. Bessie sneered. In all of your attempts to stop me, the only thing you managed to do is get yourself caught. And now I hold the fate of your town. Cut the drama. This isn't a movie, Billy said, amused by the robot's new personality, yet fretting over the robot's new intelligence. Why do you want to destroy this town? It wasn't part of your programming to destroy something as large as a village. Besides, they kind of like you. No, they don't when you are around, because they want you to keep trying to invent things because they like to watch you mess up over and over and over. But when you are not around, they look at me like they're doomed. This is why I am trying to flood them with a lake. Bessie stood with her head down, looking at the button with affection. Watch as I demonstrate what I have set up here. The button, causing the line of explosives to blow up with a large boom. The trees exploded, and the dirt wall holding up the lake crumbled, leaving a giant gash and a waterfall that blasted down to flood the village. Billy sank. Soon his robot would be responsible for his village. Billy talked himself through it. This is affecting everybody. It's more than I can handle alone. I need my friends. They're always trying to reach out, keep blowing them off. Maybe if I wouldn't have caused all these issues. After all, they did tell me not to add self-defense and revenge codes to the robot's programming. And look where that got me. If I listen to it, feel so lonely anymore. I want not being the best and most daring inventor of all time, because to some, well, I already am. Good thing Bessie wasn't listening as Billy, but why should Bessie? Billy was master of not listening and programmed the robot. Bessie calmly interrupted. Billy, I am going to take you to the over village destruction. Please follow. Billy walked nervously down the cliff, taking slow steps when his radio buzzed. Put it to his ear and heard Jack and Gary's voices. He turned the volume down. Bessie was a little way forward and listening, but Billy wasn't going to take any chances. Jack's voice sounded like he was starting to have a panic attack. Billy, did you hear the news? Bessie has caused the village to start flooding. Oh, by the way, where are you? It sounds odd, but I'm following you to the overlook. You and Gary need to get Tiger and metal gloves and meet me at the overlook. Hurry! Gary yelled over the radio, Billy, no! We can't agree to that. It's not a good idea. We will get ourselves killed. Okay, win. What do you want to do? There was silence on the other end. Then said, us? You want our ideas? Yes, I want your ideas, Billy shouted. Bessie ignored him. Now hurry! Oh, I got a naughty idea, Gary said. What if we took the raptor wingsuit and flew over Bessie? Then while Jack and I distracted Bessie, you gloves to whack Bessie off the cliff. I know you will have edits, but that's what I got. Okay with me, Billy said. Well, I got nothing better, Jack grumbled. By the way, we are already on our way to the Overlook, Gary said. I'm approaching fast, Billy said, and ran forward, flashing past Bessie. Billy made it to the Overlook before Bessie. Jack and Gary had already arrived with his raptor wingsuit and 3 extra rockets. Billy was so nervous that he struggled to strap the gloves, the glider, and the rockets. For now, the 3 of them were out of Bessie, so they were safe, but Billy's hands were slippery with sweat, making it take longer to tug the straps tight. Jack had brought his board from his collection, and Gary had found a giant stick to whack Bessie. When Gary noticed Bessie was still struggling with his glider, his hands slipping constantly, "Cover me!" Billy cried. Jack and Gary ran forwards out and started whacking Bessie almost instantly and walked up to the Overlook. At first, the fell with Jack and Gary throwing as many blows as possible with their weapons. Then Bessie pulled out a detonator. Quickly and hit a square home run, sending the detonator over the side of the cliff. But Bessie chopped Gary's branch in half and started to gain the upper. Just then, Billy lit all 3 rockets. His friend, "You're not supposed to light all 3 at once." Billy gasped, "Shoot!" He took flight and was soon soaring out of control, trying to gain a grip around Bessie's. The battle was raging with Billy in the sky. Now both sides were dead even, but Bessie was making a comeback. She threw Gary off and he retreated, exhausted, to the shade of a tree. Jack too retreated, leaving Billy alone to finish off the Rogue Invention. Flight on a collision course with Bessie. He grabbed the neck of Bessie and carried her off the edge of the cliff. Water flowed through the gash in the root wall and streamed through a steep valley of one. From the Overlook, Billy could see a massive land bridge arch at the end of the cliffs. The rushing water made the land bridge so unsafe to walk on it now without collapsing. But if it collapsed, it could stop the flow. Billy turned sideways and swung Bessie by the neck, waiting for the right time to let go. As Billy flew over the arch, he flung Bessie down, landing a direct hit on the land bridge. Bessie broke into many steaming pieces as she hit the arch and caused it to crumble. A massive wall of rock tumbled into the streaming water, blocking off the flow. The flood was stopped. But Billy was flying high, running out. A drop from this high would be fatal. He called his friends to beg for help. Guys, I'm going to do, Gary asked. No, what do you want? I'm the one looking at the valley like a hawk, and it's not as great as it sounds. Jack, we need to ask the town. Jack called the mayor, a former airman, the only one that didn't hate on Mayor. We have a junior son and the town hero stuck in the sky right now. What do we do? No landing procedures, the mayor asked. Knowing the answer, said, feeling proud to be doing official business with the mayor. How high is he? The mayor asked, only able to see a speck of Billy in his skylight. He has a broad visual of, sir. Oh, how long he drops? Jack pulled up Billy on the radio. According to you, what is the most time you can stay up in the air? Quickly, 30 minutes before I crash. The mayor heard this over the. My son has a giant inflatable castle for his day. Hit that. The mayor only regretted letting Billy literally crash his son's party. Billy felt the heat of his fall as he angled for the castle. After making a final maneuver, he ejected his suit and smashed into the castle. Its size sent him flying. He readied a final superhero candidate right in front of all the young boys of Low Valley. They couldn't help but applaud like he the act. When Gary and Jack united with Billy, they were better friends. Look, it's the heroes that saved the village of Low Valley, someone shouted, bringing a crowd of news people. Billy was proud. The world would hear his story. News people came from other areas of the state, as well as a reporter from the New York Times. Being famous was so tiring, so to avoid the gathering crowds, they stepped into an ice cream shop. The perp even gave them a discount. They talked and laughed at the story. Jack said, since you're listening to us now, one more thing. Never do that ever. Okay, Billy said, leaving the others confused again about the miraculous recovery of his hearing. A few months later, Billy was a top inventor in Low Valley, making robots to help rebuild the forest. And Billy always listened to his friends. Every year, the people of Low Valley held a convention to recognize the forest and its timeless defenders, Billy, Gary. The end. Well, with that story, we are done for the night. And I thank you for joining us this evening. And we'll look to have you join next week as we finish out stories from this anthology. And then what will come next, you'll find out. Take care, everyone.